I found out that my wife was cheating with our youth pastor, and one of my kids might be his. It all started innocently enough, or at least that's what I kept telling myself in the beginning. My wife, Sarah, had always been deeply involved with our church. I admired her dedication, the way she'd light up when she spoke about the congregation, and how much she loved teaching the Sunday school class. We had 2 kids together, Jacob, our 7-year-old son, and our newborn daughter, Lily, just 4 months old. Jacob was enrolled in the youth group led by Pastor Ben. He adored Pastor Ben, looked up to him, in fact, and Sarah couldn't stop talking about what a great influence Ben was on him. It was all fine at first. I mean, this was church, right? What harm could come from that? But over time, things started to shift. Sarah spent more and more time at church, volunteering for extra events, signing up for every committee, and going on youth retreats that took up entire weekends. At first, I thought she was just committed. But as the weeks went by, it became clear something was off. She stopped being present with me. We hadn't been intimate in months, and whenever I asked her if something was wrong, she'd brush me off, saying she was just tired or stressed with the kids, especially with Lily being so young. I believed her. Taking care of a baby and a 7-year-old is hard. But deep down, I knew there was more to it. And then there was Ben. Pastor Ben was young, charismatic, and seemed to have this magnetic pull on everyone at church. The youth loved him, parents admired him, and Sarah seemed especially taken with him. I noticed the way her face lit up when she talked about him, the inside jokes they shared, and the constant texting. At first, I chalked it up to friendly banter. He was her pastor, after all. But then it started getting weird, late-night texts that I knew weren't just about church business. I started feeling uneasy, but I pushed it away. It's just church, I told myself. There's nothing going on. But deep down, the suspicions began to grow, especially as Sarah grew more distant. One night, I came across a message on her phone that made my blood run cold. It wasn't explicit, but it was clear there was more going on than just friendly conversation. She was sharing things with Ben that she wasn't sharing with me. I confronted Sarah that night. She denied everything, said I was overreacting, and insisted Ben was just a good friend helping her through the stress of motherhood. She had tears in her eyes, and for a moment, I wanted to believe her. But then the doubts came rushing back, especially about Lily. Our daughter had only been born 4 months ago, and I couldn't shake the thought that something was off. Could Lily even be mine? That thought consumed me for days. The idea that my wife could be having an affair with the youth pastor was bad enough, but the possibility that our newborn daughter might not even be mine? It was unbearable. So, I did what I never thought I'd do. I had a paternity test done behind Sarah's back. Those weeks were the longest of my life. Every time I looked at Lily, I wondered if I was looking at another man's child. My mind raced, replaying the past year and how close Sarah had grown to Ben. Could it be? Was I raising another man's baby? When the results came back, I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Lily was mine, 100%. For a brief moment, I felt a rush of relief. But the truth about Sarah and Ben still hung over me like a dark cloud. The paternity test answered one question, but it didn't solve the real problem. Sarah was lying to me, and I needed proof. The breaking point came one evening after Jacob's youth group meeting. I'd gone to pick him up, but when I got there, the other kids had already left. I saw Sarah and Ben alone in the youth room, standing too close for comfort. Ben's hand brushed against her back, and I froze, hidden behind the door. It wasn't an accident, it was intimate. I knew then that my worst fears were true. I confronted her when we got home. At first, she denied it again, saying I was crazy and that nothing had happened. But when I told her I saw them, her face went white. She couldn't deny it any longer. She broke down, admitting that things had gotten too close with Ben but swore it wasn't physical. I didn't believe her, I couldn't. I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next Sunday, I went straight to the church elders and laid everything out, Sarah's affair with Ben, the inappropriate relationship that had been brewing behind the scenes. The elders were furious. Ben, the golden boy of the church, had crossed a line no one could have imagined. He was immediately suspended pending a full investigation. Word spread like wildfire through the congregation, and soon enough, the entire community knew about the scandal. Ben tried to salvage what was left of his reputation, standing in front of the church during a special meeting, tearfully apologizing and asking for forgiveness. But the damage was done. His charm had no effect anymore. The congregation turned their backs on him, shunning him completely. His career as a pastor was over, his reputation in ruins. As for Sarah, the fallout hit her even harder. Our marriage was in tatters, and she was left humiliated in front of the entire church. The woman who had once been seen as a pillar of the community was now a pariah, avoided by everyone who used to call her a friend. She begged for my forgiveness, saying it was a mistake and that she never meant for things to go that far. But I couldn't find it in myself to forgive her, not after the lies, the betrayal, and the destruction she had caused to our family. We separated shortly after, and Sarah was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. We have joint custody of the kids, but they've been with me more than her as she tries to settle into a new normal. My kids were the only good things to come out of this mess. Sarah tried to rebuild her life, but the scars from her affair with Ben have never fully healed. In the end, they both got what they deserved. Ben was shunned by the church, and Sarah was left humbled and humiliated, paying the price for the choices she made. As for me, I've moved on, raising my children and rebuilding a life without the lies.